It's been 10 years since peaceful protests against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government erupted into war. Since then, Syrian cities have been bombed, there were chemical attacks on civilians, and the conflict has killed at least 500,000 people. Experts have called it the most documented war in history. But will those responsible for alleged war crimes be brought to justice? Stephen Rapp is helping to build cases against President Assad and his regime. Most of the work has been done by smuggling hundreds of thousands of documents out of Syria. Rapp prosecuted war crimes in Rwanda and Sierra Leone and served as U.S. ambassador for war crimes issues for 6 years until 2015. He's also the chair of the Commission for International Justice and Accountability. Hi there, Ambassador Rapp. So, Ambassador, when you do reference the amount of evidence, and I've heard you on 60 Minutes, for example, say that there's more evidence in this than there might have been against the Nazis. What specifically are we talking about? Like, if you were to describe to people who are not so familiar with what's happened in Syria over the last 10 years, evidence of what?
Well, there's been evidence, first of all, of the regime engaging in mass disappearance, arrest, detention, and torture and murder of its own people. Perhaps close to 200,000 people arrested or disappeared in the dead of night or at roadblocks, often not even because they were in demonstrations, but because they came from an area of the country, were born in an area of the country, identified on their ID that had been a hotbed for opposition, and disappeared into these horrendous detention facilities where thousands of people were kept below ground, starved, and then taken out daily or less often, and tortured, brutalized in various ways, often dying in that process. Some who managed to survive being released or being essentially ransomed out by family members. Others being sentenced in Sednaya at 1-minute trials and hanged. And we know from testimony in the German case of thousands, tens of thousands of bodies being poured into mass graves around Damascus. The evidence for this is the regime itself, the documents that it prepared. It was sort of document mad when it came to ordering all of these arrests, which suppressed this popular uprising, and explicit orders to arrest this person or that person, or get these demonstrators to go after this group or that group across the country, and with the names of high-level actors signing on to these documents with various committee decisions, and hundreds of thousands of pages of these documents were in towns that had fallen at one time or another to the opposition. And it was possible, particularly for CIJA, an organization which I chair, the director, which is a Canadian, Bill Wiley, working with Syrians to bring out almost 1 million pages of those documents from Syria. At Nuremberg, when we tried the Nazis, we had similar documents because we won the war. But we have that in this situation, and it's rock solid. But we have even more, as I said, than we had at Nuremberg.
And so if the usual, quote unquote, mechanisms for justice can't be pursued in this case, is there an alternative route to justice?
Well, the alternative route for justice has been national prosecutions in third countries. A variety of countries have laws that allow them to prosecute crimes that have been committed elsewhere when those are international crimes, war crimes, in other words, attacks on civilians during a conflict, or crimes against humanity, crimes of violence committed against the civilian population on a widespread or systematic way. And so because a number of Syrians who were implicated in these crimes have come into Europe, it's been possible for courts to investigate and prosecute them there. And we've got this case that's ongoing in Germany, in which one individual has been convicted and the trial continues against another for the crime of torture committed in Syria against Syrians. More of those cases are coming on. That's not a lot, but it's better than nothing. And the German case in particular has been a model in the way that it's been conducted and the way that it's been possible for Syrians to follow the trial.
And finally, Ambassador, before I let you go, here in Canada, the Foreign Affairs Minister released a statement a few days ago calling on the UN to be the mechanism for this kind of investigation and ultimately justice. But you've spoken previously about, obviously, the vetoes that exist there. Do you think the UN can play a role here?
Well, certainly the UN can play a role in the sense that we have one of the organs of the UN, the International Court of Justice. Now, that's not a criminal court. That's the court where states can bring action against other states for violations of international treaties. The Dutch have filed an action, or they've indicated that they're preparing to file an action against Syria for its violation of the Convention Against Torture. So, and other states could join in that. I think Canada is one that might. Though, and it's already indicated a willingness to proceed in the UN to take action. Of course, that's not putting anyone in jail. That's not achieving necessarily any concrete relief, though it's extremely important legally. The other alternative that's been considered is that a number of states could come together and pool their jurisdiction, and particularly if that were invited or approved by the UN General Assembly. That could be potentially a court that would have jurisdiction to prosecute. We did it in a way, one could say, at Nuremberg, where the victorious allies formed together in a court, and others joined the sort of UN War Crimes Commission to prosecute cases in their own country, as did Canada. And so there is the possibility of that happening. Though that will take even more political will and the willingness, of course, of those states to contribute their resources and assets to it. I think it's important to continue to press the cause of justice. And it's Syria and the suffering of the Syrian people, so many of the survivors of these crimes I know so well. That's, of course, who we're doing this for. Right. But we're also doing it for the whole world. That's why justice is so important. If crimes like these can be committed whenever a dictator doesn't want to surrender power and basically can get away with it, then in the future, in a more crowded world with all of the issues that we face, others may be tempted to do the same thing, and finally, at the end of the day, no one is safe. It's why I think it's so important that we don't allow injustice and impunity to prevail when it comes to the crimes committed against the people of Syria.
All right, Ambassador, I'll leave it there. I do appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Enjoyed speaking with you. Take care.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.